Story 1. Instead of working 40 hours per week, I am now working 80 hours per week. Story 2. For several years, I worked full-time while running a business on the side that took so much of my free time it did not seem worth keeping my full-time job. I quit and went full-time on the business, but it dried up, and instead of having no free time, I had no work. I stuck with it for a couple of years, but eventually decided the easiest money a person can make is earning a regular salary. Story 3. I opened a small audiovisual services company after being laid off during the COVID-19 pandemic. We currently serve weddings, corporate events, and social events. I handle all aspects of the business and more, and I am making very good money. I take 2 months off each year in August and September because these months are very slow for business. Story 4. I'm the happiest I've ever been. I'm making less money and working more, but that doesn't matter right now. I love being my own boss, having ownership over something, setting goals, and getting back what I put in. I love how I'm forced to learn about so many different fields, from accounting and law to marketing, sales, procurement, and insurance. Yes, I work longer hours and have a little less financial security, but I'm prepared for it and know it won't always be like this. I'm no longer anxious on Sunday evenings, dreading my alarm going off, the commute to work, the idle office chat, and being told what to do all day. The meaning of work has changed for me. I'm so much more fulfilled. And for the first time ever, I have goals. Story 5. I started slowly in April of this year, but I am constantly booked now. I started a 2-person handyman business with no advertising. Nearly all my work comes by word of mouth. I am worried about the tariffs affecting work next year. We will see what happens. Story 6. Back to 9 to 5, actually 5 to 1, but I am too sad to talk about it. Story 7. It sucks. I was a big shot at a Fortune 100 company. All that prestige went away. I found out that I did not actually have many friends among my professional network, despite how much I had helped people in the past. People still try to take advantage of me, my time, and my connections. Story 8. The first time was amazing. Felt like life was on easy mode. I worked countless hours and put every ounce of blood, sweat, and tears into it, but it never felt like too much. Then the market shifted because of the internet and websites like Amazon and eBay, and I sold before I was unable to provide for myself and my employees. I used the money to go back to school and follow my passions until I was ready to pursue my goals. The second time was very hard. Taking the risk with a family and a house is not as easy. It is still very rewarding, but it will be a long time before I can stop working. With less time to grow my business, it is growing more slowly, so I cannot leave my full-time job yet. Both times it has been completely worth it. Story 9. Tariffs are hurting me because the price of parts has skyrocketed. Story 10. I failed when I turned my hobby into a business, and I can no longer love it. Story 11. Entrepreneurs are the only people who will work 80 hours a week to avoid a 40-hour workweek. Story 12. I'm retired now, but I took the plunge. I started a low-cost cleaning business with my housemate. As the money rolled in, the business expanded to include cleaning crews. I then added other services based on customers' needs, such as pet sitting and gardening. With basic carpentry skills, I began doing odd jobs for elderly and disabled customers, which turned into a handyman business. Later, I added drywalling and painting. It was great, because I worked at different jobs several times a week, which kept boredom away. Story 13. For several years, my business was growing and my plan was working. Then I realized it would take decades of work, even for myself. I decided to pursue what I truly cared about and start over, building again. Story 14. I never had a 9-to-5 job. When I went independent, I moved from working 50 to 60 hours per week to working 7 days a week, 60 to 70 hours or more per week. Story 15. As someone looking to take the plunge, the top comments are not encouraging. Laughing out loud. Story 16. I built a cool application, but I am kind of just burning money. I have an interview with Apple coming up, though. Story 17. 20 years later, I am earning $120,000 a year, working 6 hours a day, 4 days a week, doing something I love. It was not easy. I worked very hard to get here and was broke for years. I still work hard, but I would not go back to a desk in an office for twice the money. Story 18. After 6 years, I tell my daughters, do not follow your dreams. Instead, sit in a cubicle and pretend to be busy for 50 years. It is safer. Story 19. I have been working every waking moment for 4 years. That being said, my lady, I will own our business building and the semi-luxurious new apartment above it outright this spring. We earn just north of $275,000 a year together. Story 20. I am doing well. I earn the same as I did in a director role and I work 20 hours a week. My relationship with my family is great. My health has improved and I am much less stressed. It was scary during the first year, but now that the money is flowing, I worry far less. I am investing in the sales and marketing side of the business to gain more clients, and I am bringing in partners to share the workload. Story 21. It's freeing, stressful, empowering, terrifying. All at the same time. You trade stability for possibility. Some days it feels like the best decision I ever made. Other days it feels like I'm one invoice away from a breakdown. Story 22. Going well. More stress but more freedom. Closing in on $2 million in revenue this year. Story 23. I quit the 40-hour-a-week job and took a position from 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. Then worked my side hustle in the afternoon. The first year was a pay cut. In later years I made 4 times what I earned as an employee, and I play golf every Thursday. Managing school pickups is a challenge, but otherwise it is great. Story 24. My brother and I started our business about 3.5 years ago, and it has been incredible. It was a little scary at the start, but now it feels like we are moving forward and constantly growing. I work from home 90% of the time. I love being able to run downstairs quickly to kiss my wife and play with my kids, then head back up and keep working. I love being able to say, you know what? I'm going to stop at 2 in the afternoon so we can all go get coffee and play at the park. That is not possible every day, but it is more possible than it was before. The business has steadily made more money each year, and this next year my family should earn more than we ever have in our marriage, which is a huge win because we will be on a single income for the second year in a row. We are not making crazy money, but we are provided for and have a little extra. Being self-employed with all the stay-at-home benefits and getting to do something I really love, I would not trade it for the world. Story 25. I was let go in August. I started my own practice in September. I have 2 clients and a few in the pipeline. I have already replaced 25% of my income, and I have not advertised yet. I am optimistic. Story 26. It's going great. I retired early and I am receiving a partial pension. We are in our 3rd year, and it will be even better next year. Story 27. I own 3 businesses built on art: a tattoo shop, a plumbing company, and a disinfectant company. More money, more problems. I grew up in juvenile detention and earned my general educational development certificate in prison. I am putting my child through college for bioscience with no loans, against all odds. Hard times make strong people. Story 28. How is it going right now? Pretty good. It has been a 6-year struggle to get to this point. The first 2 years involved a lot of work and time for very little money, and savings slowly drained. Years 3 and 4 were still busy with client acquisition. Leads began coming to me instead of having to chase them, and I made a small profit with less drain on savings. Years 5 and 6 allowed more time for myself. It was still not easy, but at least the bills were covered. Year 7 and beyond. I have not reached this point yet, but I hope things continue to improve. Story 29. Excellent. I earn less but work less. I'm not sure how I could work for someone else and keep such silly hours ever again. Story 30. I am about to start. I am only 27, but fuck it, we ball. Story 31. Things are really good. I have been running my landscaping company for the past year. It is usually just me working, so some weeks are exhausting, and I might work every day, but I never work the same long hours. I used to work for a company where I usually made a lot more money, but there was no stability. It can be stressful and you never really separate life from work. Still, it is worth it for me. The freedom is great and I can do better work for people at a lower cost so they get a better product. I get paid better and everyone benefits. Story 32. Not to be political, but sales have been declining since the election. I sell a variety of items on eBay and Amazon. I am probably doing about 30% of what I was doing a year ago. Story 33. It's barely paying the bills. But honestly, it's more than worth it not to have to report to an administrator who knows nothing about my field and wants to micromanage every minute of my life. Feels great to be my own boss. Story 34. I quit at age 40 and started a software company 25 years ago. It has been a blast and the best move I ever made. I was thinking it was time to retire, but now that artificial intelligence has taken over most of the boring work, it is even more fun. Story 35. 5 years in and still doing it. I hope I never have to work for anyone again. Story 36. Mom ran her own business for 15 years. She worked tirelessly and retired penniless with no 401k retirement plan. It honestly breaks my heart. Story 37. I did not quit. Coronavirus disease 2019 caused me to be laid off. I make a lot more money, but I also work more hours. Story 38. It depends how you look at it. I have grown a small business larger than I ever thought possible. It bought me a house, and I have just taken an amazing vacation. However, I have also amassed a lot of debt doing it. Story 39. The best decision I ever made. It has been 10 years and I am never going back. Story 40. Working for yourself is demanding and stressful. I had a college degree in the arts but needed a day job to make ends meet. After 10 years, I decided to go back for my master's degree, which forced me to quit my job. I earned a full ride, graduated in 3 years, and now run my own freelance design business in entertainment design while teaching as an adjunct professor at 2 local universities. If you are driven and figure out the best way to navigate your field, most of the time it works out. You cannot give up when things get hard. You must be organized and financially prepared for setbacks. The downside is that there are no more 40-hour weeks. I now work at least 55 to 60 hours a week, but I chose this and have the option to take time off whenever I need to. Story 41. I worry about money, but the personal freedom and the schedule I can set for myself far outweigh working in an office. Story 42. I did this. I told my boss to go fuck himself, then started an auto detail shop. 3 years in, we are stabilizing. It is not perfect, but I found the right people who support me, and they have gotten me through some tough times. My biggest supporter died yesterday after an 18-month battle with liver cancer. Before he passed, I promised him I would never give up, and it is my greatest motivator. Story 43. It is actually going great, but it has been a long road and would not have been possible without a supportive spouse. I worked in office jobs, mainly in sales, and one day I had enough. My wife was pregnant, and I could not picture myself being a great father and husband if I remained miserable because of my job. I started a roof cleaning business to pay the bills. When my patent for a medical device was finally approved, I sold the business and went full-time building my medical device company. After a few years of head-down work, we are now in a great place. I am the happiest I have ever been. Story 44. I have severe attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and have never held a job for longer than a month. I have mostly worked in retail, food service, or entertainment. These jobs kept odd hours and were usually part-time. Every time I took a job, I burned out after a few months and either quit or was fired. About 2 years ago, I was fired again, and instead of finding a new job I would hate, I decided to start my own thing. I write bar trivia games and host them at a few local bars 3 nights a week. Started off well. I thought this might be something I could do long term. But now, 2 years later, I am starting to feel that burnout again. I struggle just to sit down to write a game. Hosting is not so bad since it is social, but forcing myself to work in front of a computer for hours at a time is getting harder and harder. Even when I work for myself, I hate my job and desperately want to quit. I have no other plan. Story 45. I'm working crazy hours and doing whatever it takes. Failure is not an option. It is crazy to build your own dream and even crazier to build someone else's. Story 46. The "This is fine" meme, featuring a room on fire, is the best descriptor. Story 47. I quit my job in 2014 to start a company making gin. The short version is that I lived in a cardboard box in my dad's backyard for 5 years while I tried to get that business off the ground. I was actually making progress, securing placement in a major retailer, when coronavirus disease 2019 hit. All bars and restaurants in my state were shut down, and that was the last nail in the coffin. Bad luck combined with the very real difficulty of competing in a market dominated by huge corporations. At the same time, my dad was reaching retirement age, so I ended up taking over his small construction company. That endeavor has been profitable, and I really love it. I work all the time, but the money is great, and I genuinely enjoy the labor. My advice to anyone thinking about doing the same thing is this: do not try to start a video game company, a strip club, an alcohol company, or a casino. There is a lot of competition, and the incumbents have a great deal of capital. Story 48. I work far more than 40 hours a week. On the plus side, I can visit my family out of state and still work. No one tells me whether I can take time off, but the downside is that I am responsible all the time. If something breaks while I am gone, it is more serious than a hiccup in an office. Dealing with clients can be soul-sucking some days, and employees can be frustrating. I constantly think about things I had not before. I spend my free time learning new programs and updates, doing research and similar tasks. I am thinking about selling and either consulting or working for another company for a break. Story 49. I work more than anyone I know. My social life has taken a big hit, but I quit drinking around the same time, so it is hard to determine which was the bigger factor. I get much less sleep and have much more stress. I make much more money, though. Old lifetime goals became possible in 5 years or less, which opened up more exciting aspects of life, but you have to be in it for more than money because there is a trade-off. I miss days off without responsibility. I would not recommend it to everyone, but it works for me. Story 50. I quit my 9-to-5 job, moved to a new country, and started a business. I live comfortably. I am not rich, but I am content. I am really happy with my decision. I will die poor, but my life is peaceful. Story 51. I got a working capital loan to buy equipment. I work from 9 in the morning to 7 in the evening, Monday through Friday. Customers are extremely rude. I am not enjoying it as much. I feel tired and stressed. Story 52. As a company driver, I saved all my work history for 3 years. Then I sat down with an accountant and we calculated exactly how much I would have made doing the same work as an independent trucker. I did most of the data entry, so the accountant charged only a few $100s. Best money I ever spent. The result was almost triple my income as a company driver. Despite that, I spent another 3 years as a company driver to save a down payment and to have enough to operate 3 months without pay. I did not actually need that much, but it was there as a safety net. I spent the next 12 years as a semi-independent trucker. It made good financial sense to have the company handle all the permits and paperwork rather than pay a lawyer. Trying to do it all yourself is a disaster waiting to happen. You can do it yourself, but it is a royal pain in the ass. Most do-it-yourself drivers have a spouse or relative doing that work back home. I did not have that option. I realize this situation is rare. Not everyone goes in knowing how much they will make if they change nothing else. Most truckers go independent without that knowledge and make many business-destroying decisions. Equipment failure that drives someone to bankruptcy is not uncommon in the trucking industry. One of my best decisions was to buy a truck from the same company I had worked for. They want to make sure I can make the truck payment, so they are motivated to keep me moving, just as when I drove their truck. In a way, I was still driving their truck until I paid it off. My maintenance habits ensured there were few surprise equipment failures. Story 53. It was awful. Work never stopped, and money was erratic. Now money simply appears in my bank account every 2 weeks. Story 54. Amazing. I went from a minimum of 50 to 60 hours a week sometimes even 70 to 80, stressed, drinking too much and feeling trapped, to working about 20 hours a week and earning more than double the income. I am entering my 5th year. There are different kinds of stress. Not knowing whether you will make it, having to buffer expenses because you are sometimes not paid on time. But the way you can pay yourself when self-employed, covering my health insurance and fully funding my health savings account and 401k retirement plan, makes my money stretch so much further. Knowing I can walk away from a bad client and control my own time and destiny is indescribable. I could never go back to being an employee. I consult and have one employee. I had a lot of freedom at my last job because the owner deferred to me and I was in a C-level executive position, but the stress of managing people, nonstop emails, and never being able to get the actual work done was too much. I probably would have died of alcoholism had I stayed. Now I am 40 pounds lighter, barely drink, have time to pamper myself, travel and exercise, and stress is no longer a constant part of my life. I do not set an alarm anymore. I encourage everyone with a 9-to-5 job to try a side hustle for additional income or to see if you can eventually leave and have options. I had to leave my company because new ownership was toxic and my intended activities were not allowed under the employment agreement. I had exactly 3 months of savings for expenses, no real plan beyond a concept, and I knew I could get a job easily because I had received a few offers when word got out I was leaving. Sometimes you just have to jump and trust you will land. Have a backup and think things through, but do not wait for everything to line up perfectly. It was truly the best thing I have ever done and will probably have the biggest impact on my life and quality of life. I am not married, have no children, and rent, so the risk was easier to take. I started my own business at 35. Story 55. Independent for 4 years now. This is my first half day off in over a month. It takes an incredible amount of time. Doing the work, scheduling, ordering and picking up materials, estimating, invoicing, and advertising. When you work for yourself, there is a very delicate balance between being slow and being too busy. You have to be accountable at all times and leave yourself room in case anything goes wrong. That said, I am certainly more profitable than I would be working for another company, and I enjoy the flexibility and independence of not having a boss. Story 56. Okay. A large company said it wanted to partner with me. I hope they are not lying. Story 57. Great. I was in sales, got fired, and took a temporary job in junk removal. 2 years later, I quit and started my own junk removal business. Now I am in my 5th year of owning the business, and it is great. I work less and make more money. Story 58. Things were going very well before coronavirus disease 2019. Now they are declining, and it does not look like the economy will improve. The plan is to find a job again next year and, sadly, leave entrepreneurship. Story 59. Here are the downsides. I gave up a 40-hour workweek to work 100-hour weeks. I have no sick leave. I have no holiday leave. It messes with relationships. People love that you are self-employed until they realize it does not mean you just sit at home all day. You really cannot travel. It is just not a thing anymore. That last one is a bigger deal than it sounds. Let us say you want to spend a week on an overseas trip that costs $5,000. Nothing massive, nothing extravagant, but a decent, proper trip. For someone who is normally employed, they take a week of holiday pay and they pay the $5,000 for the trip. Total cost, $5,000. For me, the breakdown is more like this. Cost of trip, $5,000. Lost income for the week I am not working, $2,500. Lost income because I had to stop taking jobs halfway through the week prior so I could get them all done. Before I left, $1,250. Lost income for the week after returning as I was not around to book jobs, $1,250. Lost income for future jobs I will never have because the new customer is now someone else's customer. $2,000? Estimate. So for a normal person, it is a $5,000 trip. For me, it is a $12,000 plus trip. If it is 2 weeks and an $8,000 trip, then for me it is about a $19,000 trip. With that said, I could never work for someone else again. I cannot stand not being the one in charge. Story 60. It is mentally freeing, but I am struggling financially because I am pouring everything into my startup. With the job, I had no freedom, but at least I had a stable income. Some days I am not sure which is better. Story 61. My husband is doing well, and I am not. Overall, it is okay because he is well. I took a $100,000 pay cut. Story 62. My dad did that. He hated having a boss, so he became his own boss. I asked him what it was like, and he said, I work twice as hard for half the money. Story 63. It is very hard. Long hours, low pay, and low return on investment. Story 64. I was dumped because the company did not take off quickly enough, and I was paid in equity at a startup I helped found. Not great. I have a 9-to-5 job again, laughing out loud. Story 65. I did this in 2007. 2008 was amazing. 2009 sucked. In 2010, I had $500 in my account and was about to move in with family, but luckily I got a job, and since then I have worked in an office. Story 66. I worked way harder for 4 years and made less money. Now I'm working smarter, working fewer hours, and making more money than anyone I know my age. I would say the sacrifice was worth it. Story 67. My mom did this. She deeply regrets it. She would be retired and financially secure now if she had not quit. She also had to give up her storefront. She does all right, but she would be doing better. I try to remind her that her body would probably have fallen apart by now from working as hard as she did back then, not to mention the mental toll of a 9-to-5 job. Story 68. I ruined a friendship with a close friend when I decided to go into business with them. It was a stupid mistake. I am now working a regular salary job and feel much happier. Story 69. I have been in business for less than 6 months. My business is growing rapidly each month, but my husband was just laid off, so I may have to close it and take a full-time job with employer-provided health insurance. Story 70. My mom is balancing a 9-to-5 job with building her own psychiatric practice. She will be able to quit her job in January to focus exclusively on the practice. But for now, she has only been able to see her patients after hours, and she is running herself ragged. She launched the company in August, and she is already earning income working part-time. She will also be able to work with the populations she is most interested in, instead of clients assigned by her current employer. I am very happy for her. Story 71. I worked at a software as a service company as a side gig for 5 years. After being laid off, I am now doing it full-time. I make about 1/3 of the money I was making before, but I am much happier now. Story 72. My job was not 9-to-5, but I gave up immediately. Finding customers and getting the business off the ground is exhausting. I am not business savvy. Story 73. My favorite hobby now induces dread when I think about it. Late nights and lack of sleep have probably left me with some mild health issues. Coronavirus disease 2019 gave me a chance to close down. I am back doing my old work for a company with great hours and an even better boss. Some people thrive running their own business. I had many lucky breaks and successes, but the whole thing left me miserable. Story 74. I ran my own business for about 15 years before I decided the stress of being my own boss wasn't worth it, and I returned to a 9-to-5 job. The stability of a steady paycheck is hard to beat. The hardest part of running your own business isn't finding or doing the work. It's getting paid. Story 75. Starting my own business is easily in the top 5 worst decisions I have ever made. Story 76. I became disabled and can no longer work. I do not have disability insurance because I was too young to think of it. I do some freelance work, but I am not earning nearly as much as I used to. Story 77. Working less and making more money. I have an amazing business partner, and we both worked in this industry, advertising and creative agencies, full-time for over 10 years each. It is still a lot of work and not for the faint of heart, but it is very rewarding, and your income ceiling is limitless. Story 78. I am self-employed, and revenue can fluctuate. When it is good, I am thankful that I am building my career. When it is bad, I wish I were employed. Emotional swings are difficult. Story 79. It is all right. I am managing the construction of a new mall in Canton, which is pretty cool. Jeep tours would have been fun, though. Story 80. Some weeks it is amazing. Other weeks you are wondering why the hell you did it. I would not change it for anything, but there are days when it is just mentally exhausting to look for new clients and work to fill the day. Story 81. I have been self-employed for 17 years. It is truly fulfilling, and I will never go back unless I am forced to. No regrets. Story 82. Fine. I married a doctor and moved to a rural area where my job doesn't exist. Now I work at a coffee shop. Story 83. I went from a corporate government job to stay-at-home mom, which was the best job ever, and then to owning my own business. I love owning my own business, but it is a lot of work. I recently explained to a friend that I work on different aspects of the business on weekends and during the week. Those are two very separate tasks, and the business will not last if you do not do a good job at both. Story 84. My worst day as my own boss is still better than the best days at my toxic as hell corporate job. Story 85. It is hard. Clients are difficult. I am only earning slightly more than before and am consistently stressed. The only saving grace is that I have an underlying sense of purpose and identity in my work. When I worked for other companies, I just felt like another cog. Story 86. My husband is not on Reddit, so I will answer for him. He has done this off and on for decades. He does not have the patience to work for tech startup founders who will not listen to good advice because they are big dreamers and think they are the next Steve Jobs. Contract work is inconsistent and he absolutely hates chasing clients to get them to pay. Since October, he has been self-employed again, putting in 50 hours a week and making less than 1/3 of what he made working for someone else. Story 87. It is difficult and lonely at times, especially in the beginning, but betting on myself has been one of the greatest decisions I have ever made. Suddenly, long hours are okay because everything is being invested in your adventure and in your pocket, not someone else's. Story 88. I started my own business in 1998, and I am still going strong. I have been my own boss for almost all of my working life. I am in the last 2 or 3 years of my mortgage. I have had enough work to allow my wife to spend a lot of time raising our children and studying. She recently finished a master's degree in counseling, so she can pick up the slack as I turn to my hobbies, which are also starting to pay off. I could not be happier. I have been very lucky. Story 89. This is the worst year I have had in more than 10 years of self-employment. Voice cloning, ChatGPT, and artificial intelligence avatars have decimated my industry and adjacent industries. Story 90. I am fabulously well. I divorced my husband and took a part-time job 37 years ago. Within 6 months, I started my own meal delivery service, and I have been running it for 37 years. I would not have it any other way. Story 91. 18 years ago, I left an executive role at a company that wanted to innovate but resisted meaningful change. I started my own firm to fill an underserved market niche, a position that remains strong as I approach retirement. That decision transformed my life. I served exceptional clients, forged strategic partnerships with industry leaders, and achieved substantial financial success. The most rewarding outcome was the flexibility to attend nearly all of my children's school and sporting events, creating memories no professional accolade could surpass. Story 92. It was not my finest decision, to be honest. I expected very long hours for lower pay. I did not expect to find myself looking for employment in the worst economy I have ever seen, or that it would have damaged so many of my relationships. Story 93. I make half as much but work only 20 hours a week instead of 50 to 60. I make enough to live on and save for retirement. Quality of life is far more important than money. Our time is so limited. Story 94. It was going well, but it has gradually declined with the economy. Things are getting tougher all the time. Story 95. Instead of working 40 hours a week year-round, I work 100 hours a week for 2 months of the year, then take 2 months off. The rest of the year is ad hoc depending on the business. Sometimes I work 25 hours a week, sometimes 60 hours. The main difference is I can't go home and relax mentally. I think about my business around the clock. Story 96. Good. Thanks. 9 years in and 13 staff members. It is hard but rewarding. Story 97. I have started reading the business book The E-Myth Revisited, and I am seriously getting scared about founding a business, which had been my plan until a couple of weeks ago. This will make sense if you have read the book. I am definitely a technician type and not really an entrepreneur or manager. I would not enjoy those roles. So, in theory, I would need to hire a chief executive officer and a chief operating officer and have 3 founders with me as chief technology officer. That makes it more complicated but doable, provided I can find suitable people to join me. My alternative is to work as a self-employed contractor in software development, but that market in the United Kingdom has declined in recent years because of the off-payroll working rules known as IR35. Story 98. I have had my own business since 2023. It is exhausting. I make more money than I did at my 9-to-5 job, but I struggle to disconnect now. Story 99. Does working as a technology consultant from home with flexible hours count? It is going great. Story 100. It went well, then it did not, but it is okay again now. Even when it was doing poorly, I could not imagine getting a proper job. Story 101. 15 years in and loving it. It was a grind for the first 5 to 7 years, but now it is fun and rewarding. I have a team of about 300, so there is much more people-related work to manage. Story 102. It is both the most beautiful and nerve-wracking thing ever. Story 103. I work about 3 hours a day unless it is shooting day. I am a videographer. Things are going great. Story 104. Good, actually, but I am thinking of supplementing with a part-time job to increase my savings. Story 105. I now earn 15% of my previous income and am barely scraping by, but on the other hand, I no longer have low-key panic attacks in the bathroom 5 days a week. I make carbon fiber bike parts, and it mostly serves as an esoteric resume for attracting non-bike-related manufacturers who are seeking an original equipment manufacturer located in the United States. The bike industry is in contraction because of the sales boom during peak COVID-19, a market adjustment among other nonsense we are familiar with by this point. I don't know if I'll last another year, but a couple of clients are keeping my lights on right now. My previous career in software engineering is being radically changed, and many of my former colleagues have lost their jobs. I've been working on a risky invention that could enable very smooth gear shifting on a bicycle by closely spacing gear ratios using an unusual method. Do I regret my choices? Yes, no, maybe. Ask me in an hour. Getting injured feels different, and I'm more careful with my body these days. Story 106. I feel like myself again, but I do not have free time, and if I mess up, things will be dire. Story 107. Really good. It took hard work and a lot of learning, but my wife is now able to stay home. I was able to be there for my son and experience things I otherwise would not have. Story 108. It is bad for me. There is just enough to eat. I am on the verge of giving up. Story 109. My neighbor quit his office finance job and became a manufacturer of custom office furniture. It is working well for him. He bought his wife a Jeep Grand Wagoneer, himself a Ford F-250, and a new boat in cash. He also bought land to build a computer numerical control machine shop and hired about a dozen laborers. All this happened in about 3 years, and he is doing very well. He even has one of his workers milling new bathroom cabinets for me at cost. Story 110. Great. I get to do my old job and my old boss's job. I handle finance, IT, accounting, office management, and more. Even though it's a lot of work, I would need a lot of money to ever go back to work for someone else because my boss is so awesome. Story 111. I often go back to work after dinner and feel like it never ends. I have a lot of trouble taking time off or away, and I am so stressed that everything will come crashing down at a moment's notice and I will become destitute. I earn much more now, though, and can pick up my kids from school and work from home half the time, so that is nice. I do miss finishing work and having it be done. Story 112. It is 10 times more work and pays 1/3 as much, but I wake up excited and full of ideas. It is not for the faint of heart, but it is an amazing path. Story 113. I worked very hard, earned a few gray hairs, built the business for 26 years, sold it and retired early. Story 114. We had a home-based business for about 15 years. The housing market reduced our revenue by 85%. My husband worked for free to keep it going while I worked for a corporation. It was very stressful. He retired right before the coronavirus disease 2019 pandemic, thank goodness. Story 115, doing well. I transitioned from science, technology, engineering, and mathematics to nails and opened my own studio. I am well booked and will raise prices in February. The starting price is about $85. I am in California and specialize in nail art, so it is financially rewarding. Story 116. I started my business with co-founders as a side hustle. After about a year, I realized it was not going anywhere, so I quit my full-time job early in my career to run the business full-time. I moved cities, rented a small place, and spent my savings on funding the startup and supporting myself. One partner also quit his full-time job. The other co-founders did not. The business began to grow rapidly, which required us to leave our comfortable 9-to-5 jobs to take it further. However, the remaining co-founders were unwilling to take the risk after seeing my struggles. I began looking for another job during a weak job market and eventually found one, but I had to start at the bottom again. Key takeaways. 1. The startup journey was eye-opening and full of learning experiences. 2. You often have to work 2 to 3 times harder than in a regular 9-to-5 job. 3. Do not go into business with partners unless you trust them completely and share the same zeal and conviction. 4. Things may or may not work out. Have emergency savings and surround yourself with supportive people. Story 117. I love working 100 hours per week and accomplishing nothing. So much winning. Crying in the corner. Story 118. It went great. The beginning was difficult. Long hours and many worries. 5 years later, I was making a couple $1,000,000 a year and retired at 50. Story 119. I work twice as hard, but it is already part of me. Story 120. Way better than I ever imagined. In January 2021, my wife and I left the desert of southern Arizona to buy a house in the woods of western Arkansas. My job had gone fully remote, as had the remainder of her Doctor of Philosophy coursework. 2 months after moving, I pitched the idea of buying a Japanese mini truck online to use around the property for projects and firewood. She was on board, so we pooled our coronavirus disease 2019 stimulus checks and got one. 2 months later it arrived. Within a couple of weeks, I had been flagged down while driving twice and stopped at gas stations 3 times by people interested in my truck, a 1996 Subaru Somber. My wife suggested we order 3 more on a trial basis to see if we could make a little money on the side, so we did. While waiting on that shipment, I registered a business name, obtained licensing and a bond, and created a website. Those first 3 trucks were reserved before they arrived. We set a goal to sell 10 per year as a side job. In the final 5 months of 2021, we sold 11. In late November, I had the opportunity to renew my contract with the Arizona Department of Health, but I decided not to. We sold 34 trucks in 2022, followed by 38 in 2023, and another 38 in 2024. My annual income nearly doubled. I was spending less time working and learning a lot about mechanics, the Japanese automotive industry, meeting interesting people, and getting to know the region. I do many of my own deliveries. At the end of 2024, after an administration that appeared anti-trade, anti-economic growth, and unfriendly to small businesses was elected again, we set a goal to increase monthly sales from just over 3 to exactly 4. We started spending a little more on advertising and ordering more inventory. I am proud to report that with over 6 weeks left in the year, I have exceeded that goal by almost an entire sale per month. We are on track to finish the year with 54 to 56 sales and have expanded our range considerably. I thought 4 years ago I would be selling only to a handful of people like myself in Arkansas, Oklahoma, and maybe Missouri or Texas. I have now sent trucks to new homes in 19 states, including Hawaii, Florida, Utah, Michigan, North Dakota, and Ohio. It shows no signs of slowing, and every additional sale generates more word of mouth. My current goal is to keep growth at a manageable level so I do not have to hire anyone or work more than I want to. I have been very lucky. I started selling K-trucks just before their popularity boomed. I am extremely picky about the vehicles I order because I want customers to be happy and to have an easy time owning them. I always wanted to be my own boss, and I could not imagine a better way to do it. Story 121. I hope more people start their own businesses. They do not necessarily have to quit their jobs. The available tools make it easier. Story 122. It is hard but worth it. I do not mind working long hours or paying high taxes because at least I am doing it for myself. I do not seek riches, but I want to be independent, make my own decisions, and be my own boss. My grandmother was an entrepreneur and business owner since the 1970s, when it was much less common for women to own businesses, and I admire her for that. We were both victims of abusive partners, left our marriages, and started our own businesses to build our independence. It is not easy, but you have to remember why you are doing it. I do it because I love working for myself rather than making someone else rich. I love the flexibility I have, and I am proud of what I have accomplished. Story 123. It's a roller coaster. Money can be unpredictable, but passion keeps you going. Story 124. Pretty well. I became an independent grading contractor. I make 4 times as much money now that I'm independent with less responsibility. I have periods like this when I have some time off, and I have a nice, secure stack of cash to fall back on from the 3 months I just worked. Story 125. If it is for Usha, insurance, or multi-level marketing that brainwashes you into thinking you have your own company, do not do it. If it is for a passion project, you will work a lot, but you will make progress. Story 126. I came through to the other side. It started with 70-hour work weeks. It has been over 10 years, and I have a handful of full-time employees to whom I pay a proper living wage, including a manager who runs most of the business for me. I work 2 shifts a week these days without any reduction in pay. Story 127. I started my business about 6 years ago. I earn between $150,000 and $200,000 a year. I can do everything myself for now, but I plan to form partnerships and hire contractors. I work in technology about 45 hours a week. Story 128. I went full-time into music. It was mostly playing cover gigs between tours with some teaching. I ended up in corporate music. Although I'm happy to get to play, if I could go back, I'd have stayed in my media and advertising job, moved into digital, and pursued music on the side. My joy is nearly gone from this, and I think daily about quitting. My basic takeaway is this. Have a fucking plan, have measurable goals, and stick to your timelines. I should have gotten out in 2012. Oh well. Story 129. I am about 10 years past quitting a regular 9-to-5 job. Financially, it has been a struggle, but it has allowed me to stay home with my children, which was always the goal. As hard as it has been, I would not have done it another way. I know it will get easier later on. Story 130. Instead of working 40 hours a week, I now work 65 hours for half the pay I used to make in 40 hours. Story 131. There's a lot of stress in work. It's always too much or not enough. People want their product to be special and yet want Amazon prices. They say they care about supporting a small business until it costs more, takes longer, or inconveniences them. Between healthcare and steel prices, I might have to fold up shop at this rate. Story 132. I have been unemployed for more than a year and am looking to buy a business. I worked in technology for 20 years and have experienced poor treatment. I am 58 and no one will hire me, so business ownership is my only option. Wish me luck. I am considering wellness businesses, towing companies, and other recession-proof industries. Story 133. I started my own woodworking company after investing half my life savings in lumber and tools. I am pretty relaxed and a bit lazy, so I learn, make items, and store them, hoping they will earn me money someday. I spoke with a store at my school last week. They will start selling my woodwork next week and will give me 80% of the proceeds. Story 134. I started after the coronavirus disease 2019 pandemic. I quit my full-time job and went for it. 4 years later, I have 5 full-time employees and 8 part-time employees, and it is scary. Story 135. Good. I am busy and overwhelmed, but it seems like people really like my photography, which makes me feel great. Story 136. I quit my job 5 years ago to start this drone software company. We have grown to 10 people and are fully bootstrapped. There have been many ups and downs. 1. I have learned a lot about life, myself, and business. 2. I have sacrificed sanity and some social events, but that is the price you pay. 3. If it all ended tomorrow, I would never have to wonder what if. I have the story and experience of starting my own company. Whether I retire with the company or not, I have no regrets. Story 137. Basically, my life is work now. There are many ups, but just as many downs. It's hard and not for everyone. Story 138. I was laid off, but I had advanced notice and received a small severance. I am a knowledge worker, so I earned a couple of certifications because they were useful and showed I am legitimate. I spent the rest of my efforts on networking rather than marketing and advertising, and I started consulting. It all paid off. Clients came in slowly at first, but referrals helped me grow exponentially each year. I now make more than I did in corporate work, and I love the flexibility and the lack of office politics. However, it is not for everyone to be responsible for their own information technology, sales, and accounting departments, and to be disciplined enough to start work when no one is watching. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.